Stop blaming yourself. It's time to forgive yourself. Okay? Why do you let your past mistakes keep you hostage? Today, we're breaking out of the guilt prison and snatching our freedom papers. Let's get it. Yo, 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 what's up, family? Good morning to all you brilliant, beautiful, abundantly blessed beings, and welcome back to yet another present moment. This is the Ace Anderson Show, where we connect every single Monday morning to provide you with weekly inspirational and entrepreneurial tips and tricks to help you ace your life. So congratulate yourself for making it to yet another beautiful dawn with me, your dedicated guide on this journey of self-discovery and growth. If you don't know by now, I am an actor, a rapper, a filmmaker, a poet, the ace of all trades, the modern renaissance man, Ace Anderson, and I am so happy to be here with you all for another blessed week. Now, as we embrace this first light together, I want to extend a special shout out to all you early risers joining in. Your dedication to starting the day with intention and positivity is what makes the A-Team extraordinary. So, I want you to grab your favorite morning brew. Y'all know my drink of choice is alkaline water, and let us explore, illuminate, and inspire ourselves to be better with mindful conversation. Now, today, we're talking about how guilt can paralyze personal growth and why forgiving yourself is the key to living fully. So, as we embark on this week's adventure, let's remember to align our hearts with the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Let us trust these divine nine to guide us on the path to living a life that resonates deeply with our most authentic desires. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, as I alluded to, we all mess up, right? No one is perfect, but holding on to guilt is like holding on to a cactus. It only hurts you, right? So we're going to talk about why forgiving yourself is the best gift that you can give yourself. And also, we're going to discuss a little bit about the difference between shame and guilt. Which is better? Are they both bad? How to move through each of those things. So I hope that you guys are ready and excited for this episode as much as I am. So, now there I'm gonna like start off by sharing a time in my life where I feel like I've over apologized, um, you know, and it doesn't really do anything except force, like try to force forgiveness. All it does is indicate that there is guilt, there is shame, and it's low vibrational. Both guilt and shame are lower vibrations than love and joy and peace, right? And a lot of what we do, most of our purpose in life is all about seeking inner peace. And so if we feel guilt, that is an indication that there is no peace within. There is no peace within ourselves. There's no peace within our hearts, no peace within our lives. And we are unable to find that inner peace. And, for me personally, my relationship with my younger sister growing up was never really wasn't as good as it could have been. My parents divorced at a very early age, and around when I was 10 years old. My sister's 4 years younger than me, so she's 6. And so what I realize now as an adult is that I took out a lot of that frustration, a lot of that guilt, a lot of that sadness that I felt. I took it out on my sister. And, that continued all the way up until I went to college. And when I went to college, I left Florida where we grew up, and I moved to Dallas. And when I went to Dallas, like, nothing that ever happened in Florida was ever a problem anymore. It actually was all really kind of behind me because I had so many other things to deal with and think about and concern myself with. And what I didn't realize was that in my relation back home, like, all of those problems in some way stayed, especially in terms of, like, with my sister, and dealing with how she, like, dealing with that relationship. I never really was able to cultivate that relationship properly, and I didn't even realize the effect that it had on her until I was an adult, until I was much older, out of college, and trying and realizing, like, wait, I never really had a relationship with my sister. And um so from that point when I realized that until pretty much until now, I have held on to this immense amount of guilt and sadness because I see myself as an adult, but I see her as this little 6-year-old girl that I just abandoned, or I was mean to, or I didn't let play. And so anytime there are problems in her life today, take those things onto myself, like I am the cause of it. And it's led from guilt, not only guilt, but it's now turned into shame. And for me, it's like, what I'm starting to realize is that the shame and guilt I've been holding on to is causing me to act out in certain ways that are unnatural to my true inner being, highest frequency self. And being in that space makes our relationship stuck in this past mode because I'm trying to right the wrongs of the past, and I'm not able to really move forward by acknowledging that she's not 6 years old anymore. She's not a child. And we're both adults. We're both in our 30s now, and we have much different outlooks on life. And, our relationship is, like, for us to actually have a relationship, we need to start completely fresh. And so, in a lot of ways, this episode is really for me. And I hope that you can get something out of it in terms of, how you let go of guilt, and where you find areas in your life where you really need to forgive yourself. And if you I hope that there's something in here that resonates with you, as we discuss. So, guilt is a one-way ticket, right? Why do we cling on to guilt like it's our best friend? Well, guilt is designed to teach us. It's not designed to torment us. The Bible says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The translation for that is nobody is perfect. So stop acting like you're supposed to be. And I find myself in this situation a lot in my own life where I feel like I'm supposed to be perfect. I feel like I am Adam, the first man, and that I have, if I didn't sin, if I didn't do something that I don't see as good, then I am bad, and that I should suffer. I should be punished, and I hold on to that guilt. I hold on to that. I hold on to that sadness, and it is crippling. It is hard to move out of that. It's easy to get lost in that when you have this ideal that is a perfectionistic ideal that you feel like you have to live up to. I can't live up to a perfect ideal because I'm never going to be perfect. So I'm always going to fall short of the glory of God. God is my future self trying to manifest itself in the present moment. All of that manifestation is not going to happen all at once. In other words, I will never be perfect. Even philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche say guilt is just a social construct, you know, which means that guilt is essentially a societal, external view of how we should be. It's not internal at all. Guilt oftentimes comes from what we think we should look like in the world, how we believe we should show up in the world. And we're never going to show up how we think we should show up because how we think we should show up is dependent on how other people see us and how other people think of us. And we can't control what other people think. You can't control what someone thinks of you. You can't control what someone else feels about you. You can only control what you feel about yourself. So when you're lost in the space of, I feel guilty, I'm sad because I've done wrong, when you're lost and trapped in that space, you can never find that peace that you need, that's required for you to be able to move on and live a fulfilling life. We've come to understand that heaven is just consistently embodying the fruit of the Spirit, because the fruit of the Spirit is heaven. The fruit of the Spirit is what you wish to experience when you get to heaven. That's the only reason why anyone wants heaven, why anyone is searching for anything, is because they want to experience love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. We all wish to attain these things. And the crazy part about it is that we do have these things. We have obtained these things because they are ours. They are not separate from who we are. We only separate ourselves when we forget that we have this ability to have inner peace. No one can stop you from deciding to not feel joy. No one can stop you from deciding to not feel from deciding to feel joy, or for deciding to feel love. No one can stop you from feeling that. No one else. We have just tricked ourselves with the external world that we need these things to make us feel a certain way. We need other people's validation in order to make us feel joy. In order to make us feel peace, I need that external validation. I need the external manifestation in order to feel this. And that just is not true. Now, we understand now guilt is a social construct, but it feels like it's weighing you down, doesn't it? It's like carrying guilt is like dragging around a suitcase that you didn't even pack. Right? Like why are you lugging around emotional baggage for free? It's heavy, it's unnecessary, and it's probably full of dirty old socks. So I want to talk about a few steps to acknowledge and confront your mistakes. One, write it down. So studies show that we actually process better when we write versus when we just think. Thinking is great and meditation is great because you can slow down your thought, but you think more slowly when you write, because you write slower than you think. So it allows you to spend more time processing each thought that you're writing down. So writing down your confessions, so to speak, journaling, diarying is really helpful for this in this regard, because it allows you to slow down your thinking and really be able to process it. The next thing you can do is talk to somebody, right? Have an accountability partner or a therapist. Sometimes I, it's good to talk to friends. However, friends can be a little bit inundated with your present reality. And sometimes that it's hard to really, truly, fully express how you feel to a friend, because maybe the person that you feel like you've wronged, is one of their friends. Or maybe they are the person that you've wronged. Or maybe you have a fear of what they'll think of you if you confess this thing to them, or maybe it'll change their view of you, right? And all of those things are wrapped up in fear, and that's not necessarily true, but it is enough to say that possibly talking to a therapist would be better, because a therapist is much more neutral. A therapist typically doesn't know about the inner workings of your life. They don't see you every single day. So it's helpful to have a therapist. If you don't have a therapist, if you can't afford one, if you don't feel like you can afford one, writing things down is just as good. But finding somebody neutral to talk to, if your parents are, if you have parents or relatives, uncles, cousins, they're really great to talk to, because they're close enough to you that they'll hear you and you feel like there's a cathartic release. However, they're not so wrapped up in the situation maybe in your life that you feel like you can't be yourself without disrupting the mode or the mood, so to speak. Um, so you want to write it down, you want to speak it out, you want to confess to somebody you trust, right? Guilt loves silence, but freedom loves truth. Remember that. Guilt loves silence, and freedom loves truth. You know the quote, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Right? So the truth is hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's so freeing sometimes. Like, I mean, pretty much every time, when you can just get the truth out and you don't have to overthink or over process or over analyze if something is bothering you or how you should say it or what you should say. Sometimes it's just the truth is just all you need. That's it. All you need is truth. You don't need to sugarcoat it sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's good to be mindful and be able to read the room and know when to share certain things, right? To see, are people ready to receive it? Are people in a space where you can actually be heard and you will feel heard, or is that or is this not the right time? So you'll be able to know when it's the right time to share the truth, and you just want to get keen on understanding that, and create more opportunities for you to feel comfortable speaking your truth. And the thing is, if you feel like you can't speak your truth, then you are not around people that you love. You have to Here's what love is. You don't love somebody if you can't be honest with them. That's just the three pillars of love are truth, trust, and patience. If you can't have those things, those interactionable pillars between you and another person, you really don't love them. You might say that you love them, but you really don't if you feel like you cannot be honest with them. You can't talk to this person, right? And you definitely don't love them if you don't trust them, right? So you have to have trust. And then three is that you have to be patient with them because they're not perfect, just like you're not perfect. They're not always going to say the right thing and the thing that you need them to say. They're not always going to do that, right? So you can trust that they'll be imperfect. They're not going to always say it right, but you can trust them to be themselves and to do what's best, what they think is best, right? So, guilt focuses on the act, shame focuses on the self, right? Guilt focuses on this is the difference between shame and guilt. Right? So shame is focusing on who you are and guilt is focusing on what you did. So we want to stop mixing these things up because guilt and shame are vastly different. Guilt can be helpful in letting you know that you made a mistake, right? Guilt focuses on action. So when you're feeling guilty, guilt says, I made a mistake. I'm guilty of this thing. When you hold on to it and you focus on yourself, that's when it turns into shame. Shame says, I am a mistake. See the difference? Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am a mistake. Guilt can lead to growth and change, but shame can spiral down into self-loathing, hatred, and depression. Guilt can be productive, right? If experienced only for a moment, but shame often isn't. Now, guilt prompts us to reflect on our behavior and make amends. Shame traps us in feelings of worthlessness, which can lead to avoidance, hiding, or even self sabotage. And so, in regards to what I had mentioned about my sister, you know, we, you know, there was, at first, it was guilt. I felt guilty. I felt like I did something wrong. I made a mistake. But then, as I held on to it, it became shame. It turned into something different, saying that I am a mistake. I fucked up. I didn't do this right. And in that space, I can't move forward. It's where I lead to avoidance of handling the situation because I don't feel worthy of handling the situation. I don't feel capable. I end up hiding, right? I end up running away out of fear. And I end up self sabotaging because the things that I want, I'm running away from. I'm not running through my problems, I'm running away from my problems when I'm in shame, right? When you feel shame. Shame is often rooted in fear of rejection. If they knew this about me, they wouldn't love me or accept me. It disconnects you from others. While guilt has the potential to bring you closer through repair and reconciliation. So, this is all talking about how to let go of guilt because you want to let go of guilt before it becomes shame. Because guilt is linked to moral and social rules, shame is tied to identity. So when you're experiencing guilt, you're in this state of seeing what other people might think of you, right? And sometimes society is right? You are guilty. And it's okay because we all fall short of the glory of God. So you're going to make a mistake from time to time. But don't let that turn into something else. Don't hold on to it longer than you need to. Do what you can and then let it go. Okay? Guilt often arises when we violate a standard or we hurt someone. And then shame comes from internalized beliefs about who we are, many of which might not even be true. So now, are they both bad? Guilt isn't inherently bad, right? When handled properly, it can be a motivator for positive change. If you can admit, right? If you can confess, this is why in the Christian religion, it's all about confessing. There's a lot because there's a lot of release to be able to confess the truth and just acknowledge a mistake. Acknowledge it. I mean, I've acknowledged it, right? This can lead to positive change. So it can motivate you to be like, I need to do something about that. Example, you forget somebody's birthday, right? Guilt drives you to apologize and make up to them. Now, shame, however, can be toxic, right? If it's left unchecked, shame erodes your self esteem, it blocks your growth, it can lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms like isolation, addiction, or perfectionism, none of which are good. So, I mean, neither is entirely good or bad, but it's kind of how you handle them. But shame doesn't really help you. Shame can occasionally motivate self improvement, but more often it undermines you, right? Guilt can be transformative, but it comes from, but it comes, it becomes unhealthy if you dwell on it for too long because that's when it turns into shame. Does that make sense? So, the way you deal with guilt is that you acknowledge what you did. That's it. You acknowledge what you did. You become aware of what you did. That's that's the first step in dealing with guilt. I am aware I did this. And own it. Admit the mistake and its impact on others or yourself. I did this thing. I messed up, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but I messed up. It doesn't reflect your identity, right? Because a lot of people get wrapped up in this. This is where it becomes shame, where it's like, I have eroded the trust of myself. I can't believe I am the type of person that would do that. Let's say you cheated on somebody, right? You are guilty because you did the thing, right? And so you can admit that if you can admit that. But if you don't admit it and you hide it and you hold on to it, and then when you look at yourself, anytime anyone talks about about cheating or infidelity in any way, you are now you start to look at yourself. If you have shame, you start to look at yourself like, dang, I am the type of person that would do that. I can't believe I'm the type of person that would do that. I have done that. And you hold on to it. And then you punish yourself for much longer in your mind than than you should, than is healthy. So the first step is to just admit it, right? The first step is to own it, admit the mistake, say, hey, I've done this. Okay? I've messed up, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but I messed up. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but I messed up. I messed up, but it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, because you're not a bad person. Okay? Because you're able to acknowledge that you messed up. Bad people can't acknowledge that they messed up. So you're already, that's the first step. You're done. Now you got to move on to the next step. The next step is to apologize and take corrective action. So, this is especially in the Christian ethic where you ask for forgiveness, right? That's what apologizing is. You ask for someone's forgiveness. You confess and you ask for forgiveness. Do whatever you can to you take a corrective action. Not whatever you can, but you do as much as is necessary to move forward. Look, I'm sorry about this and I am going to make amends. Especially if you've hurt somebody. You reach out to them, you make amends, and you see how you can move forward from where you are. There's no way you can go back and fix the past. But from where we are, how can we move forward from this? Okay? We're not retroactively fixing anything in the past. The past is done. The only thing we have control over is this present. So, you apologize. Step one is admitting it. Step two is apologizing, taking corrective action. Reach out to somebody, make amends if you've hurt them. And be specific, right? You say, I regret this action because it caused this effect. And I'd like to fix it by solution. I regret this action because it caused this effect, and I'd like to fix it by this solution. All right, so that's step two. I regret taking this action because it caused this effect, and I'd like to fix it by this solution. And then you just wait to receive, right? You wait to receive the lessons that you're supposed to receive from that point. All right? You learn the lesson and you ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? Or you ask the person, what can I do differently next time? How will I operate next time when I'm in this situation? Now that I know. And here's the thing that you have to remind yourself. You are human, so you may mess up. Even though you've had this lesson, you may mess up again. You may not do it perfectly the next time. You're never going to do it perfectly. But the next time, you can do it a little bit better. Maybe you won't get as angry. Maybe you won't yell as much. Maybe you won't throw something that you ended up breaking. Maybe you'll try something different. And maybe that won't be the answer, but maybe it's better. All right, so you're going to ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? And I'm going to do my best to take that action next time. And that's it. That's all you have. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best. Growth happens when you use guilt as feedback, not as a weapon against yourself. Growth happens when you use guilt as feedback. It's just feedback. Oh, I'm guilty. Oh, okay. All right. I didn't do this thing, you know. Don't use it as a weapon against yourself. So you have to let it go. Right? After that, you have to let it go. You say out loud, I release this guilt because I've done my part to make it right. Say to yourself, I release this guilt because I've done my part to make it right. And something you can do is picture the guilt as a weight that you're setting down and walking away from. Now, shame is a little different. How we deal with shame is a little bit different. It's a lot different, actually. So, with shame, You have to first name it. You have to recognize it. So it's a little bit like admitting it, right? Admitting that you're guilty. So you name the shame. You name the shame name. The shame name game. Name the shame game. I feel ashamed because I think blank about myself. I feel ashamed because I think whatever this belief, insert this belief that you have about yourself. So that's how you recognize it. I feel ashamed because XYZ. Then you write it down, right? Writing it down is helpful because it helps you separate the emotion from the reality. So you write it down, um, and you can read it and you can see, you can think a little bit more clearly about the situation. Then you, two, you're going to challenge this narrative that you believe about yourself. Ask yourself, is this belief actually true, or is it something I've internalized? Ask yourself, is this belief actually true, or is it something that I've just internalized? Then you have to replace that negative thought by saying, I made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. I made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. Then talk to somebody you trust. Because sharing shame often can diffuse its power over you. Talk to somebody about something that you did that you feel ashamed of. And a lot of times when you're in that vulnerable state, you're able to build this connection with a friend by saying, hey, like, I've been struggling with this feeling that I have about myself, that I'm a bad person, that I did this horrible thing and I feel like it's means that I am the worst person in the world. So that helps diffuse the power of shame by having those conversations. Then four, um, practice. Okay. Number four is practice self compassion, right? So you want to treat yourself like a friend who made a mistake, right? Because a lot of times we'll talk to people better, we'll talk to other people about something they did better than we'll talk to ourselves about what we did. So you have to think of yourself as one of your best friends that's coming to you and says they made a mistake, right? And you say, I'm still worthy of love even though I'm imperfect. Even though I'm imperfect, I'm still worthy of love and compassion. And you focus on, then the next thing is you focus on connection and not perfection, right? Because shame thrives in isolation because your thoughts are cyclical. They'll just keep going round and round and round, and you'll just have all this negative feedback loop. Well, if that's true, then this is true, and if this is true, then that's true, and then that's true, and then this is true, and this is true, and that's true. And you just keep going around in a circle, and it's just gonna grow and grow and grow, and that shame is almost going to be insurmountable until you start leaning on relationships that remind you of your worth. Because people don't, you'll remember this. People don't love you because you're perfect. They love you because you're you. People don't love you because you're perfect. They love you because you're you. So when it comes to guilt versus shame, guilt is better when it leads to positive action, right? Because it's like a smoke alarm and it alerts you to a problem so you can fix it. And shame is often more harmful, so it's a priority that you deal with it, right? It's like a fire that burns your self worth. It rarely leads to growth and often just keeps you stuck. And we're all trying to level up. We heading into 2025. It's time to level up. You can't be stuck behind shame and guilt. So use guilt as a guide for self improvement and release shame by embracing your humanity. Okay? So there was like one time I remember I bombed in this audition. Like I just did not prep for it because I thought I had it. I thought I had it in the bag. I didn't memorize the lines. I just saw somebody gave me an opportunity and I was just like, "Oh, I'm just going to show up and they're going to love me and I'm going to be amazing." And I bombed. When I tell you this audition was horrible. Horrible. And the director turned out to be this award-winning director. I didn't know this at the time. He was like an award-winning director on the come up, had all of these just all of these accolades, and I just was like, yo, like I'm this young guy, like somebody said I'm good, so here we go. Like I just did, and I bombed. I did not know the lines. I was just like trying to act in the moment. I had like 2 weeks to prepare for it, and I didn't do shit. And I just remember how terribly I did. And after that, I felt so bad. I felt so guilty that I did not rehearse. I didn't really put the time in. And that was like one of the first auditions that I just like was terrible. I knew I was terrible. And I spent the whole summer just like bashing myself and telling me, oh my God, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb. Especially when I found out, I'm like, I'm so dumb, I can't believe this, da, 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 da. And it just spiraled, yo. Like I was just like telling myself how terrible I was, you know. And it's not until I was able to, you know, actually talk to the director at some point in some future point. And I talked to him and I told him, one, he saw me in another show, so he saw that I was actually talented. And I talked to him when we later on became friends. Now we're friends. This was years ago, but I talked to him and I told him I just like was able to make a joke about it. Like, yo, I remember I bombed that audition, like, and he laughed. He couldn't even remember it. And that's what I found oftentimes when we're holding on to a lot of guilt and shame. Like, we have all this like baggage because we know ourselves. We know everything we've done. We know the whole story. But most people don't know your whole story. I mean, no one really knows your entire story. They don't know all your background and everything you're coming with and, the whole story behind who you are and why you do what you do and what your family life was like and all of that stuff. They don't know any of that. So when they see you or when they have an interaction with you, if it's not memorable, they'll forget it. And I've found like, you know, it's like I found that there is really Like it's really interesting because like when we hold on to this shame, like we hold on to this guilt and we punish ourselves as though that person is thinking this of us, but we are the ones thinking it of ourselves. So we're just adding to that momentum, we're adding to the frequency of the guilt, of the shame, of the things that are horrible, the things that we don't like about ourselves, and we're causing double that. So let's say this person was thinking all of these terrible things about me, right? Okay, that's one person thinking bad things about me. Now, also, I'm thinking bad things about myself. So that's two people thinking bad things about me. So I'm experiencing the guilt and the shame twice more than I need to. So we talked about the self-forgiveness formula, right? This is why we confess. This is why we go and we say we release our guilt and shame, right? We admit what we did. We admit what happened. We ask yourself what lessons you can learn from the mistake. And step 3, you actively choose to release this guilt by you admit the mistake, you own your role in it, and then you actively decide to release it. You can write it down, you can burn it, like that's, some people do that, they'll write it down in notes. I've done this before with certain things, where you write it down, you burn it, and you release it, or you throw it off into the ocean, or whatever it is, but some act of releasing, right? Because it symbolizes symbolizes you know you letting go of the thing, right? Um, so Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." Now let that include you forgiving yourself. Right, so be kind and compassionate to one another. You have to be kind and compassionate to yourself, and you have to forgive each other. It means you have to forgive yourself, because no one that matters is holding a grudge against you. No one that matters. The only thing that matters is what you think of yourself. Nothing else matters. No one else matters. What anyone else thinks of you matters not. Let go. Stop worrying about what other people think of you. Stop worrying about what other people's thoughts or concerns, or if they've got the story about you right. They're never going to get it right. No one is you. No one, nothing that anyone else thinks about you matters. The only thing that matters is what you think about yourself. Because what you think creates your reality. Your personal reality is created by your personality. Your personality creates your personal reality. Did you know that your brain can actually rewire itself with new habits of self compassion if you practice it enough? That's neuroplasticity for the win. Your brain will rewire itself. The more you practice self compassion, saying good things about yourself, listening to affirmations. We talked about it last week, using the app Mesmerize. Have these phrases play often, frequently in your mind all the time, saying, I am worthy. Make sure the music that you're listening to that can get into your brain on a subconscious level is positively affirming you and what you want of life. If you're listening to music about the ops and they out to get me and I gotta keep a gun and I gotta keep the thing and I gotta blah 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 blah. If you're listening to that type of music and this dude left me and I don't give a damn about women or whatever it is. If you're listening to that type of music, that's the type of stuff that you're gonna get in your life. So you want to practice words like self compassion, thoughts and feelings of self compassion, self worthiness, abundance. Okay? That's the one thing I will say about hip hop, right? Like there's a lot of hip hop is boosting yourself, right? A lot of it is a lot of it is degrading and about hurting other people, and there's a lot of violence and all of that, but there is a lot of hip hop that sounds rough and rugged and whatever, but it also is like just about boosting yourself, like I'm number one, I'm the king, right? Like, and I think that there's nothing wrong with music like that, but you want to really be mindful about the content that you're consuming. You want to be mindful of the content that you're consuming because it affects your reality. It you're shifting your brain, right? Your brain is so malleable and just absorbs and becomes you. And that's what shame is. That's what we learned about shame. It just these thoughts become you, and you become the thoughts. So you want to practice thinking positively. So you want to focus on growth and not perfection. Failure is just feedback in disguise. Every mistake has a lesson wrapped up in it if you're willing to unwrap it. Even in defeat, there's a valuable lesson learned. One of my biggest career wins came after a rejection that shook me. Right. So sometimes the doors that close are the ones that teach us how to build our own. So if you stumble, make it part of the dance. Nobody's watching us as hard as you think they are. Everybody's got a spotlight on themselves. You think you the only one with a spotlight on you. Everybody's watching. Oh my God, everybody's looking at you, right? Like think about how you are when you go to a dance club. When you go to a dance club, are you over there hyper focused on every other person and what everybody else is doing? Or what one singular person is doing? Or are you mainly focused on how you look and how people looking at you? When you go to a dance club, are you just vibing, dancing to the music, getting into it because you're in your own zone and you're happy to be in your own zone? Or are you not dancing, you just sitting off to the side because you don't want to look cool, you don't want to look too foolish by dancing or doing the dance move that everybody else thinks is stupid? Come on, man. Ain't nobody watching you as hard as you think they are. So just live your life. Have fun. So some practical takeaways is that every day you want to say out loud, I forgive myself for the mistakes I've made, I learned valuable lessons, and move on. I forgive myself for I forgive myself for the mistakes I've made, learn valuable lessons, and move on. I forgive myself for the mistakes I've made. I learn valuable lessons and move on. This is what I do. I forgive myself for the mistakes I've made. I learn valuable lessons and move on. You got to declare it to believe it. Write a letter to your past self about the mistake, then rip it up, burn it, bury it, whatever you got to do. Because it's the body and the mind both agreeing and finding harmony by saying, it's over. It's done. So I want to know, what's been your biggest hurdle in forgiving yourself? Please drop it in the comments. We could talk about it a little bit. We got a little bit of time. I think we got like 5, 10 minutes. So I want to hear what is has been the biggest hurdle for you in forgiving yourself. And here's another question for y'all. What's harder, forgiving yourself or forgiving others? What's harder, forgiving yourself or forgiving others? Because I want to see where we're all at on this journey. So the first question I ask is, what's the biggest hurdle in forgiving yourself? And the second question I ask is, what's harder, forgiving yourself or forgiving others? In the meantime, we're going to do a short mindfulness exercise together. So I want everybody to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine releasing the guilt like a balloon. Right? So just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine just releasing that guilt like a balloon. Let it fly away. So somebody said loving yourself is harder. Loving yourself harder is harder than loving others, or forgiving yourself is harder. Why do you think that that is? Why is forgiving yourself so hard and loving yourself so difficult? Why is that? Is it because you're aware of everything you've done and you haven't let go of the mistakes that you've made? Why is it so much harder? Is it and if you can think that, like, you know everything you've done, are you treating someone else like they're perfect, like they've never done anything? Do you think that they don't also have things that they might be ashamed of? If you were to be in their mind and see their entire life the way they see it? Are you treating yourself like you're supposed to be perfect, or are you treating them like they're perfect? They have no mistakes? Or are you easy to say their mistakes aren't as bad as yours? And why are your mistakes so much worse? These are questions that you should ask yourself, and write it down. Write it down. Don't just think about it. Write these things down, because it really helps you process it better. It helps you see it from a objective perspective. Says because we live in a effing society that prints in our veins. It prints in our veins that we have to follow the rules, and yes, we have to be perfect. Now that's a belief. And a belief is just a thought that you continue to think. So if you continue to think this thought, then it's going to be true for you, because neurons that fire together wire together. So you're building those neural pathways that make it easy for you to think that. It's just a belief. It's not true. What makes it true? There are some people that live in a society that don't feel that feel like they live in a society where we are abundant, and that people are helpful, and people are excited, and people are willing to be themselves, because you're willing to be yourself. So there are people out there like that. So a belief is a thought that you continue to think, and if you believe that, then it's going to be true for you. But that doesn't mean that it's true objectively. So these are the reasons we want to ask ourselves these questions, so we can align with a reality that actually exists. We can we that we desire to exist. We can live in a reality of our own choosing, where we don't feel like we are forced to experience what others feel or what others believe or what others want. We can be in a world where we believe what we want to believe and we desire. We are in a world where we believe what we want to believe. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you. I really, really appreciate y'all for joining, participating, asking questions, and seeking answers. Just like that, we are wrapping up another fantastic session here on Ace Anderson Live. So today we talked about guilt. We talked about forgiveness. We talked about growth. We talked about the difference between shame and guilt. And remember that guilt isn't your identity and failure is not your finish line. Big love and thanks to each and every one of you who joined us live this morning. Your energy and insights light up this community and push us all to level up in every way possible. Now, don't forget, we're here every single Monday morning, bringing that heat to start your week off right. If today's conversation got you fired up, inspired, or just curious to learn more, do me a favor, like, comment, and share this stream with someone who might need a little self-forgiveness today. Because you know, word of mouth is the best influencer. So keep Ace Boogie in your thoughts and prayers, and I promise to do the same. Also, follow me on all social media platforms at Ace Shot That. Remember, we're on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Donner, on Blitzen, on we're on Snapchat. We're on everywhere where you could follow us online. So come follow your boy. Let's keep the A team growing strong. Until next time, y'all, remember to always align yourself with truth, trust, and patience, and I promise you will ace your life. Peace out, y'all.